Okay, this is a long overdue showcase on Samurai Rimuru, and he's a phenomenal attacker that can solo DPS on your team, but with the added benefit of giving everybody other types of buffs. Like he provides a all stats up, or he can buff your team's physical damage to an absurd amount. And yeah, in this video we're going to go ahead and talk about his skills, slots, and what equipments he can be using in general use and nuking. So starting off with the slots is a 5-star physical, 5-star support, 4-star physical, and then the skill, if it crits, increases all R gauge by 50. And similar to Vox, this skill is pretty amazing, with it being able to help yourself become more self-sufficient, and you usually don't have to worry about you never critting with this skill, because when combined with his passive that gives him 100% crit rate up, it procs pretty often, and it really helps art gen your Rimuru. And then his arts increases all allies stats by 30% for 10 seconds, and it's pretty great with it being able to pseudo heal your team and then it buffing your damage slightly. And it never hurts to use this, especially if your team's low or you're trying to finish off a boss. But his main bread and butter is his true arts. His true arts increases all allies physical damage by 50% for 50 seconds, and it stacks. This true arts is really what makes him shine, because stacking a 50% damage boosting is pretty nuts, because he can stack this a pretty good amount of times before they really start decaying. And they usually decay one at a time, not like all at once, so you don't have to really worry about you losing out on all your damage at 50 seconds. And you can really stack this up to 200% boost in damage for physical damage dealers. And it really is pretty amazing, because with his skill being into play, giving himself more art gauge, he can stack this multiple times in a single run, and you can see him really put out some crazy damage numbers then. Now onto the passives. For the first passive, when Samurai Rimuru is not in any type of status enablement, like being blinded, cursed, or burned, he will have 100% crit rate up. And this really synergizes with his skill and allows him to have a 50% art gauge up constantly whenever he uses his skill. But this also allows him to become the solo DPS on your team, because if you do not need any other DPS but Samurai Rimuru, you can really use him by himself, because he will not need to have any other crit buffer on the team, so he can legit do it all himself. The second passive reduces physical damage taken from the enemy by 10%. And it's not too noticeable, but any type of damage mitigation on a unit doesn't hurt. And then the third passive increases crit damage by 50%, and it's a pretty great passive that synergizes with his kit, because he already has 100% crit rate when he's not in status enablement. And then finally, we're going on to the equipment. The equipment I recommend for general use is like anything that can boost his art gauge or increase his damage, but you really don't have to worry about boosting his art gauge as much as other units, because with his skill he already increases his art gauge by a ton. So if you just want to top him off so he'll be able to use his true arts, you can use items like Itsumi no Kanasa from the Golden Kamuy event, or you can use like Reptilia's sword, Crystallized sword, True Izanami, Finn's true weapon, anything like that that can really boost his art gauge. But if you just want to boost his damage instead, you can run like Hiei's sword, Older Toguro, or you can run like True Nanashi to increase your damage even further. And then for his 5-star support, anything that can really boost your team's art gauge is pretty beneficial here, like Sacred Sonic Treasure, Milim's clothes, Goku uniform, Melty's dress, a Serpent's dagger. Or you can run like either single target up items like Lesser Demon Heart, Magical Steel Mask, Finn sunglasses if you just want to increase your art gauge. And then for the 4-star physical, I usually like to run Grief, because it's pretty great here with it being able to increase his art gauge and his damage. and you don't have to worry about him losing all his HP when he could just art and heal himself. But if you do not have Grief, you can run his event equip, which is pretty decent here, or you could run like Rolly's 4-star physical item that increases BE, or you can run like Gunbray sword from like Vicious event if you increase your damage more. For nuking, there's a lot of items you can use in the physical slot. Like if you want to lower the enemy's damage resistance, I recommend like Rishi's Bikini, Noelle's True Weapon, Angelus's True Weapon, or like Type 30. But if you want to boost his damage or your team's damage, you can use like Genos's Vest, Hero Gloves, True Nanashi, or Gem of Rags if you want to boost your damage even more. And for his 5-star support, I always recommend using Type 0 because it's a pretty great nuking item, fit being able to increase everybody's art gauge by 50. But you can also use other art gauge up items that increases damage, like Sacred Silent Treasure, Goku Uniform, or Rimuru plushies. And you can also use like stuff that increases crit rate, like Letter Bag or Terror Conjunction. Or you can run like his new item that came from his equipment banner. I think it's called Rimuru's Hattori, and it's a pretty great item that kind of replaces Letter Bag and Mono Demon nukes, but you rarely see that being used if you're not running full demon team. And then for his 4-star physical, usually I'll run like Gunbray Cannon from the Vicious event. You can run like Grief, Relic Vulcans to clear waves, but you will lose your 100% crit rate on your passive, so be mindful of that. Or you could run like Riviera's Floating Mattress. Since he's a demon, he'll get like a 50% attack up, so that's a pretty great boost in his damage. And yeah, this is gonna be the end of the showcase. I want to thank you guys for watching, and the next one is gonna be either New Year's Malem or it's gonna be Hatsune Miku.
Oh, I could be all it is you need, 'cause we are trying to find a way to feel